everyone. My name is Brian Weeks, and I'm a Senior AEC Technical Specialist at ATG USA. I want to thank everyone for joining us today as we're going to talk about CTC Tool Superdoor Configurator. You'll never use Revit door families again, and I'll get ready to show you why. Entering my 22nd year in the industry, and have a lot of experience with architecture, project management, project architect, and a lot of experience with Revit. I specialize with Revit and creating BIM models, construction documents, families, and rendering. And if you're interested in having me be a part of your team, you can talk to your ATG sales representative to become an essential part through team augmentation. Today, the presentation I'll be giving is being performed on a BIM box. I have a Striker M mobile workstation. It's an i9 processor, 64 gig of RAM. We also have just released, ATG just released some white papers on BIM box and the performance of this system. And you can find those on the atgusa.com website. So if you're interested in that, definitely take a look at the white papers on the benchmarks for these systems. So today we're going to talk about Superdoor Configurator. It's a CTC tool that is a plugin for Revit. And what this plugin does is allow you to create an infinite variety of doors within Revit, and gives you full control over the assemblies, frames, panels, parameters, and then also, because they are families within Revit, the ability to tag those doors. And I'm going to show you how to do all that today. If I could, I'd like to ask that you save all your questions till the end of the presentation. I'll have a period at the end that if you have any specific questions, I can answer those at the end. So I'm going to talk real briefly about the limitations of out-of-the-box Revit doors. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the typical Revit door that comes straight out of the box. Not a whole lot of parameters to control what you need to do. Door hardware, things of that nature are pretty limited when you're talking out of the box doors. So with CTC tools, what this plugin does is it gives you the ability to modify additional parameters, selecting what you want from a graphic interface and modifying and adjusting those parameters accordingly without having to physically go into the family, such as you would with a Revit, out-of-the-box Revit door, and have to modify the parameters or add additional parameters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to do that. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to learn about the Superdoor assembly and the admin and setup for that. So first thing we'll do is we'll go ahead and create a new project and just use our typical Revit template. I'm going to go ahead and create some walls so we can insert our new doors into these walls. And as part of the CTC software, CTC Content, when you download the software, it'll be up here on your toolbar. We both have CTC batching project suites and BIM manager suites that you can try out from our ATG USA website. But today we're going to look at the CTC Content for the Superdoor. And we're going to look at the suite settings just to briefly cover what abilities this gives you. And it allows you to control the ribbon button visibility. It also is where you can insert your licensing information. You have controls over how you want to group these tools, whether under single ribbons or multiple ribbons. Very straightforward. And then the Superdoor admin itself I want to see if everybody can see that. So I'm going to switch to my screen here. So when sorry about that. When I opened this, it opened on my other screen. So I'm going to show you again. When you open the Superdoor admin, it's actually going to give you a prompt. So whether this is the first time or the multiple time that you have opened this admin, it gives you a prompt, unless you checkbox don't show this to me again, that when you have the licensed version, it always allows downloading the latest components, because CTC will update those from time to time with any errors that have been reported or client comments that have come across to modify and edit the family. So what you could do is to download your latest and greatest content. So when you download the Superdoor content, what it does is it loads multiple families that are used in basically the database of the configurator to choose your options of what kind of door you want, what kind of frame you want, and what kind of door panels you want. And these are all individual families that load into the configurator that you then modify in the other window. Through the configurator admin, you can actually modify and look at each individual family, and it will give you the properties, the construction types, geometries of the base family model. So if you need to modify any of these parameters according to your company's standards, and so when your company employees start using this on a regular basis, they can download through the configurator, download the door they need, but you already have your maybe your company numbering, your company materials, whatever your standards might be, you can assign those to the families through this configure button in the admin. And you can do that for each one of these families that you download for the Superdoor. So that's pretty much it through this admin. You can purge that information to repurge and download the new stuff, modify the data settings. Very important, all of the CTC tools, is that there's actually a video link that anytime you need assistance on the particular section of CTC tool that you're utilizing, click video and it'll actually take you directly to YouTube for the help videos on whichever particular tool you're looking at. You can also click on support and get direct email contact through that method as well. So let's go ahead and dig right into this Superdoor configurator. And I'm going to go ahead and switch my view back to see if it'll just go back to my Revit. Okay. And so hopefully everyone can see. I guess type in the chat if you can't see my Superdoor configurator window. It has opened. You're still in Revit, but the configurator operates as a separate window, but you're still working within the Revit program itself. This is a plugin for Revit. So right off the bat, it opens up. I'll go across the top again. If you need any assistance, there's a video link, or you can go to a text-based help link. But the videos are really nice because it walks you through step by step of any issues you might be having with that particular section that you're looking at. And so, start off main door assembly. It's really easy to follow along with the configurator. Is that each tab actually is self-explanatory. You'll start at the top and work your way through to the end. You select your assembly, you select your frame, your panel, your parameters, and then create the door. So today, I'm just going to kind of keep it simple. We can go with a single swing door. Well, I can show you the various ones. We have bifolds, bifold doubles, say for closets, overhead doors, pocket doubles, and you guys can kind of see the various types. It gives you a preview, describes what it is and how many options it has. So today I'm just going to select a swing door, double click on that, and it's going to take me to my frame selection. Again, you can go into the configuration properties of these families through the admin, and if you have a different numbering system or a different naming convention that your company uses, you can rename these door frame families or any of the families there. Aluminum, hollow metal, and of course, if you click on it, it's going to give you a description over here on the side. Wood frame, hollow metal frame. And today, just to show a little variety, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select one with a side light. Primarily because without Superdoor Configurator, anytime you would want to draw a side light in Revit, typically the design workflow was you put a door in and then you use the out-of-the-box single pane window and create a side light, and it would sit next to it, but they weren't connected to be two separate elements, a door and a window. With Superdoor Configurator, it combines those into the single family unit. So again, I'm going to do, I might do a couple, since we have some time today, I might do a couple of different door variations. And if you have any questions or want to see perhaps one of them done after the fact, we can always, I think we're going to have time to work through those. Let's do let's make this a typical office door type. So we've got our side light, single door, and let's have that a glazing. So when you double click on that, it's going to go to the next tab. Like I said, it just follows through step by step, super easy to do, super easy to follow along. And same thing with the parameters. So when you click on the parameter itself, it's going to give you a preview on the left of what exactly that parameter does. So this one's adding an angle, and this is going to be graphically how you want that door to look when it comes out on your, when it's inserted into your model, 45 degree, 90 degree. I'll just leave it at 90 degree for now. Frame depth, again, these are super self-explanatory, super easy to use. How deep do I want my frame? How much do I want it to be inset? And I'm going to leave most of these as a default because out of the box with the Revit Superdoor or the CTC Superdoor Configurator, out of the box, these come with fairly standard settings. And that's what's great about it. If you need to use it multiple times in different situations, you've almost always got a 3.0, 7.0 door. You can set your panel inset or your panel offset, your rough heights for your rough openings and rough widths. You can also have sills. So perhaps this is an exterior door, then you can add a sill to the exterior. But like I said, I think for now I'm going to use this as an office door with a side light. Set your door thickness, thresholds, interiors and exteriors. You can even set the heights there as well. So perhaps if with this sill extension, if this was perhaps a rooftop door where you actually had to have some variation between the sill height, the sill height between a rooftop door, and you wanted to set that sill, that would be a way to do that, and then actually show your threshold in that location as well. Offsets, control, I mean, there's parameters for every single one of these elements that are present in the door families. I'm just going to click through these. You guys can read most of these settings, and like I said, I'm going to just leave these at a default for now, except I might take a look, like if we do this sill height, you can do an intermediate mullion. Side light width, maybe I want to do 2 foot. And maybe I want my sill height to be at 30 inches. And then set my intermediate at 4 feet. And then you can also make modifications to the panels. Especially, this is a nice feature. So if you have a kick plate that you need to put down here, or call that out in the door schedule, you can at least have the correct head height and bottom for the rail thicknesses in there. And styles, so if you have a specific hardware set that maybe utilizes an 8-inch style, then you can modify those. Go to the next tab. This now gives you the ability to set your materials. So frame finishes, panel finishes can all be set through here through these parameters. Again, does it have an intermediate mullion? Well, yeah, we said so on the other one. It's kind of summarizing some of these other parameters that we specified. How many lights? We're just going to have one side light, but you can split it up into multiples if you so choose. Threshold material. Your options, now these are getting in real deep to your parameter settings, but perhaps you have a cost that you want to associate with this door frame. Perhaps you have assembly codes that you want to use, or UL listings. There's some various parameters that you can fill in that are currently, blank, but you can use those as a scheduled item. And because these are all Revit parameters within this configurator, these are all Revit parameters that can be scheduled, fire rating, a whole lot of different information that you can put into this and create your company standards through the configurator. So last bit, super easy. It's going to give you a preview. Here's the door. Main door I selected was a single swing door. It's going to show me what the name of the family is going to be called when I insert it into my project. You can change that. Again, if you have company standards that perhaps have a naming convention for your families, you can change the wording of that type. Same with the door frame and the door panel. You select what you want to do with it. I'm going to load it into and place that instance in the currently active Revit document, or if perhaps you're a BIM manager that are creating the company standards using the configurator, you can uncheck that and actually save it as a new family, and it will prompt you to a server, a file location where to save that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit finish. And it's going to take a second, configure the components. Place it in my wall that I created. And all the properties that I set in the door configurator are showing up. It's aluminum. Now, of course, if I want, I can always go in, select the door families. I can change the frame. I can change the panels, to whatever material it needs to be if I didn't set it before. And that association will stay with the family. Oh, there we go, I did the wrong one. See it in plan. Can flip it, just like you would at any regular door family. So super easy. I'm going to close out of these out of the box door. Super easy to use. Let's do a different one. Let's see here. Again, let me see which screen I'm sharing. There we go. Let's do, I don't know, let's do a different one. Let's do like a sliding door. So there's various ones. Decide which one you want. This is one active and one fixed. And again, hover over the door. It'll show you what the door type is, the door assembly. Main door with active in the middle, 2 on the fixed on the sides, etc., so on and so forth. Let's go ahead and just click the sliding and then select the frame. Is it aluminum? And these are, you know, it's a lot of this is common sense. You're not going to have a wood door frame that's sliding like this typically, unless you're doing like a closet. But then in that case, you would just use a pocket. So these are really intended for, these are aluminum exterior sliding doors. Let's do a transom on it. And then let's do the aluminum with the glazing. Breakaway for code shows that. You can specify the widths. The sizes right now we're showing 8 foot. Let's do like a 12-foot door. Again, all the settings that you can modify. I'm just trying to do this kind of a quick and easy. Aluminum settings, brushed. And see, it's saying, okay, you've already got a family from this, and that's from our previous one that we did, the previous store that we created. So I need to rename this a different one. And of course, like I said, this comes down to whatever your company standard may be. Maybe we would use the same door in both places, but chances are that one's an office door, one is not. Let's see. Oh, I didn't have my constraints set. Let me go back and look at this again. Try a different one there. I hadn't taken the time, because I'm just doing a demo, I hadn't taken the time to really set up the company standards through the admin settings, and so I was getting some issues with trying to basically create multiple families. Let's see, I had it set at level 1. And there's your door. Got a question. Can you assign to and from room parameters to the doors within the software? Actually, yes, that was my last thing I was going to take a look at here, was the numbering. And so let me look. If out of the box, that's a great question. If out of the box, if it has a to and from room parameter to the doors within the software. Let's try something here. Just going to create 2 rooms. and then see if I can assign the door. And this kind of ties into the last part of my presentation too, because the way the door configurator works is because, as I showed you previously, we're utilizing multiple families to create the door. And so if I was to come in and do an annotation and tag all doors, what's going to happen is it actually is going to tag all the door families and the door panels that are within the configurator, because it has to associate not only the door assembly itself, but it has to associate the frame as well, or the panel itself. And so the way to go around that is when you can do like a tag all, or you can do a select all, like if you select your project and use your filter and check your doors, then when you tag your only selected objects in your current view, then it can actually tag the individual door, and then you can name it to whatever numbering mark you need to make that be. Now, also, I might tag in here too about, Jason, I'm gonna answer your question here in a second about the to and from room parameters here. Using another CTC software tool, which is from the CTC BIM project suite. It's actually a renumbering tool. So if you guys aren't aware of what this tool is, please check with your ATG sales rep, and we can also schedule a presentation for this. But within the CTC tool BIM project suite, the light colored tools are the free tools, and the dark colored tools are the full version tools. If you download the 14-day trial, you can use most of these tools during that, or can try these tools out in the 14-day period. But the free ones, renumbering, that's one of my favorite ones, because it does allow you to renumber doors to and from the occupancies. And it does it by, if you just saw the issue I had when I tried to change that to 2, one of the other door panels was already numbered 2. And traditionally you'd have to go back through and renumber all your doors, or name one like 200 and then have to rename this one 2, and then rename the 200 3, or whatever that numbering system would be. Well, with the CTC project suite, the BIM project suite, I can actually renumber those based on a sequence, or I can rename those based off of a room numbering. And so I'll just show you real quick. Let's say we want to start the sequence with 100, and I checkbox auto swap door number. It's going to actually change those in order. Or, for example, if we go back to the example that I had, let me hit cancel and undo. And we had the issue where this particular door panel, or was it this one? One of these was already numbered 2. Then we can actually come in with the renumbering tool, and with the auto swap number, it will actually renumber those and swap them out. Now, to also do the to room and from room, the cool thing about this is that I can also, let me hit escape. I can renumber them based on the room number itself. So there's a lot of room phasing. Let's see what phase, I don't even know what phase I drew this in here. Project completion. So let's go ahead and go back to my renumbering tool. Set it up for room-based numbering, project completion. Perhaps we want to do a 2 room. I'm going to swap my number right there, and it's going to change that to 2. which that was a bad example because it was already a 2. Let's do 100, 200, so we can see these a little bit easier. So now it's going to room 400, or if I flip it, it's coming from room 200. So that property association is in there to set that numbering. Okay, what if I flip it? You know, it works kind of the same way. If I flip that door and I use that renumbering tool, this is like one of my favorite for all the stuff I do for clients. This BIM project suite, there's some really cool tools in here that just through my daily workflow, the last 20 years that I worked in an architecture firm, these tools some of these are just huge time savers. This is one of them. Wish I would have known about it before I started working at ATG. But again, renumber, and I remember I flipped the door, so now it's going to flip it back. Really, really cool tool. Well, I'm trying to think of some other ones because I got through my presentation pretty quick. Again, the CTC Superdoor configurator, it's super easy to use. But if you guys and ladies that are there, any of these doors you want me to try to play with, or did you guys have any question? Okay, yeah, that's a great one, Jason. How do you control transom heights? So it's actually controlled through the setup the same way when you're creating it. Now, for example, if I'm using the door I created, I can come in and the properties, you can see that the properties right now are of the entire family of that assembly, I should say. I keep saying family. It's multiple families within one assembly, and that's how Superdoor Configurator works. Whereas the Revit out of the box stuff are individual families, and you kind of have to piece those families together to get them to do what you want. The configurator puts multiple families into this assembly. And so the not the threshold, I was repeating that. The transom controls are going to actually be through the frame. So if you go through this assembly and the properties, you see your head height, but that's for the door. And then if you click on your edit types, so it's a completely different family. It's the frame type that controls that transom. And so I had mentioned earlier, really the way to do it is you want to create, have your company standards and create that standard within, as you're developing your doors using the configurator. So let's just do a double swing door, and then I'm going to do let's do an exterior. Let's call this an egress door, like you would see on a school. And let's have this transom, hollow metal frame. We're just going to go with solid panels because that's, it's going to be a hollow metal door. And as you click through your door frame, one of those options in there is your transom height. So if we're using a 7-foot door, let's say we had 9-foot ceiling, so we want to go to, loosely, let's call it a 2-foot transom, 7-foot door, 2-inch, and you can, set all these properties just super easy through these parameters. But anyway, let me go back to, so my transom now is 2 feet. I can change graphics, I can change options. I'm gonna go ahead and create that door. So hopefully I didn't rename any of these, but I don't think we've created any duplicates yet. So that's the important thing is as you're creating new families, and you're sure to have duplicates. Say, for example, of even this door, you may have this maybe hollow metal, some type of fire door, but you may also have something like a wood door leading into a library with a transom or something like that. Then what you would have is a different family associated to the same assembly, but with wood panels instead of the hollow metal. But you can see that I've got two different transom heights. Now, if you wanted to control that, let's say after the fact, let's say you did a 2 foot and you did a 2 foot transom in using the configurator. And once it got in the project, you're like, well, we got to lower our ceiling to, 6 inches because of our mechanical system. So we got to change that, but it's already in the project and we've already copied it multiple places. What do we do? Well, it's super easy because like I said, it's what this configurator does is it takes multiple families and combines them into an assembly. So you can see this is our hollow metal 10 door frame system. And because that's a separate family, and I'm within the assembly family, then I can now modify that, rename it, duplicate it, call this one, HM10 24 inches, and then I can duplicate that and create another one that's got a different transom height. And then that's controlled through this family. And then you would make those changes, load it back into your project, maybe save it to your company standards if you're going to have multiple door transom changes, modifications. How do you create a custom inset door panel routed detail? Well, David, that's a good question, David, because our raised or door casing profile. So a lot of, now you can, let me see how I want to answer this, because you can actually create a door using inset panels, and I'll show you how to do that using the configurator. Now the individual profile itself, such as a sweep, or something like you're doing an OG profile or a semicircle or even an angle. Some of that detail really is not intended for Revit per se, because when you get down to that small a detail, a lot of times that detail does bog down your model. And so any kind of high level details like that of what kind of profile you're going to use on an inset would probably be handled in like a detail component, like a blow up detail. That's how I would typically do it. But you still want that to show up in an elevation. You still want to say, okay, this is going to be a 3-panel door, and refer to this detail for what that profile is. But we still want to show it in elevation. So for example, let's just do a swing door, and we're just going to do a regular frame. But when you get to the door panel, you can actually select the different the panel inserts. So you can do 2, 4, 6. Most of these are going to be either residential or like a high-end, like an office, a lawyer office or something that's going to have that detail. And again, so you just select the one you want. I'm going to leave the basics for now. But typically, well, let me go back actually, because you can actually modify those panel sizes. So if you have, middle thicknesses that you need to set, maybe you want the bottom ones to be taller and the small panel in the middle, you can set all those settings through the parameters of the door. Sorry, as I'm thinking as I'm talking here. Let's do a 12-inch. Let's do a 6-inch head, a 12-inch bottom. And it doesn't show up in this. Again, this is just a representative image of what you're inputting of the parameter location of where that's showing up at. But when I hit create door, oh yeah, because I already created a swing family. So let's say, I don't, And of course, there's always going to be variations to to what door you're going to need. This definitely isn't a end all be all cover every door uh, for but for what we've done with these CTC tools is try to cover as many common door designs as we could, and then giving you the ability with the parameters to create a door close to what you need or exactly what you need, depending on that design. David, did that help? Did that help answer your question? Is that kind of way? I just want to make sure I was understanding your question about the custom inset door panels. Sort of. Okay. Um, maybe you can type. I don't know if I'm misunderstanding. Custom inset door panel routed detail. Are you just actually looking for details for the doors, perhaps? And then Jason says he saw a toggle for ADA clearances. Can you show that? I sure can. This is a really cool tool as well, built into the families, and it's a graphics parameter, so you can do a pull side. I love this too. This is because back in the day, we had to before this was available, you had to either have a family that would draw that, or you would have to have an annotation block. Pull side. Of course, if I was doing this real world, I'd probably have that flipped the other way. Something like that. Pull side, and then I want to do my push side. Front approach with latch and closer. I don't know, just very helpful tool, especially for ADA clearances on your code drawings. Some jurisdictions are going to require this in your permit set. And so just by adding that parameter to all of the doors, I mean, that's a huge time saver in and of itself for your doors. Let's see. Guys have any other questions? Oh, wait, here's another one. Are there different swing symbologies available? For example, existing door swing symbol as opposed to new door swing symbol. Tim, typically that would be handled by your phasing. I don't know. And of course, it's going to be dependent on your company's standard. But all of these are going to be, I mean, right now I installed them, inserted them, I should say, as a project completion phase. But typically, if you're going to do your existing versus new versus demo, and maybe I'm misunderstanding, but like if I did that as an existing, and then I do this as an existing phase, but then I demo it, and then I need to show my view as project completion, previous and demo. Demo and new. I mean, that's typically how I would handle the existing door swing. Like to show the door swings new versus existing. I don't know. Oh, okay. And Jason maybe had a side comment. As a company, they typically, and I don't know if you and Tim are at the same company, they show existing doors in the correct phase, but show the swing as a 45. So in that case, yeah, that's an easy one too, because the swing is actually controllable as a parameter of the door, whether it's new or existing. So depending on how you want to handle that, then that's a possibility. Thank you, Jason, for adding that. Can you add door hardware for 3D views and renderings? You can. Now, the door configurator does not have that built in, but because it is a family, that is a possibility that you could edit that existing family. You know, you can, now that, again, this is the family with multiple families within it. This is the assembly, but you know, you could add your specific door hardware to that door panel. That's definitely a possibility. Again, it's the only limitation is what your company standard is. But the door configurator as it currently is does not have the door hardware on and off feature, because there are so many variations in door hardware. Joe came in late. It will be recorded. This will be posted to, I believe, the ATG USA main website, atgusa.com. Give it a couple of days, because they'll go in and edit out my my pauses and stumbling around trying to find my various windows. Let's see. Adam, I think I'm just trying to get everybody's comments. Adam, can you drop in a regular door, then modify the sizes individually, or do you still need to duplicate for various sizes? And I think he's just talking about the way the assemblies are set up. And you are correct. I believe you can, because of this assembly. Let me turn these pulls off. Or not the pulls, the push-pull clearances. So what you can do, because again, this is an assembly with multiple families within it. Let me let me try to go to the one that's a little bit simpler. Oh, and change that back to where we can see it here. So if I needed to change, like have multiple instances of this double swing door, and rather than going into the, let's see, drop in a regular door, then modify the sizes individually or duplicate for various sizes. So what you would do is you would actually have, and it depends on your company standard too, but probably what I would do is create the one standard that I'm using within the configurator, and then duplicate that family and modify the parameters within that family. So for example, this is my F style door, and it's set to the 6 foot wide that we set. Then I would actually create a duplicate, because see, you can see I can scroll through the family types, and the panel width is controlled by the overall panel width, which is there. So if I want to, let's say, create a small, maybe a double door is a bad example, because 6 foot's pretty standard. But let's say I want to make an 8 foot wide door. Maybe we're working in a convention hall, and they need a double, you know, an extra wide door with a removable style and all that to get some equipment through. So I would just actually duplicate this, rename it, and call it, you know, 8 foot, or, you know, whatever the naming convention is for your firm. Come down here, there it is, change it to 8 foot. It's going to change that, and then I'm going to load that into my project. Give it a second. I'm going to duplicate it, and then I'm going to change that to my F8, which is now a different parameter type, a different family type, I should say. Keeps putting it on a weird level. But now I've got my 8-foot door versus a 6-foot, and it's utilizing the same standards that I set. Maybe the materials are similar to what I set up in the configurator. And Tim commented, we also show an existing swing as a line as opposed to an arc. That would have to be something that maybe your BIM project manager would do. So if you have to modify that door swing to a line, that would be something they would have to look at. There's not a setting to change the arc to a line, but it could be done because it's a family. Go through some of these because we talked about the, let me back up. We talked the admin setup. We talked about assembly frames and panels. We also talked about the Superdoor parameters, and then I showed you about tagging the Superdoors, kind of a unique situation because of the way the assemblies are created, but it really doesn't change really a whole lot of different workflow. Just a different way to do. Again, I'm Brian Weeks, ATG Senior AEC Technical Specialist, and if you guys would have any needs, drafting needs, modeling needs, any questions, comments, feel free to email us at atgusa.com. Thank you guys, I appreciate it, and everyone have a great weekend.